Everyone talks about those up-and-coming fighters, those guys in their 20s, but why don't we talk about the unks of the UFC for once? So today, we're going to be going through the top 10 fighters inside the UFC that are 35 years and older.
This is just an unk list. I love it.
Unks.
So when I was making this list, I didn't realize how many good fighters there were over 35. Like, I have a lot of honorable mentions. Everyone is so good. I feel like it's mainly just lightweight. You can go through the lightweight rankings and be like, okay, yeah, I'll take you. It's like a draft pick.
Yeah, I'm like going through the divisions, making sure I don't forget anyone. I'm like, oh, you're old.
Yeah. Also, I think the most surprising person to me, even though he's like one of my favorite fighters, Robert Whittaker is only 34 still, and dude's washed. Yeah. So we're cooked.
Or like, yeah, there was a couple like 33-year-old wash guys, and I was like, oh,
Yikes.
You're not 35. One thing though is
Paulo Costa.
It is certain that we are going to forget a guy.
100%.
Or they like turned 35 the day this video comes out.
Yeah, let us know who we're forgetting, because I'm sure I think you missed someone very important. I'm just gonna call it right off the bat.
I think you missed someone important.
We're probably thinking of the same person.
You might have missed like one of my top guys.
You might have missed one of my top guys. So I'll start with my honorable mentions.
All right.
I have 4. First one, Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're 80 years old inside the UFC, you have to get some credit.
Exactly. He's doing what no one else can do. But I don't think so. The way that I'll explain how I did my list ranking. It's pretty much like a combination of how good are they when they've been 35 and how much potential do I see them having still when they're after 35. So some guys on my list, like, they've done everything, like they've fought for a long time when they were 35 and older, which is like puts them higher on my list. Some guys have just turned 35, but I still think they have lots of potential.
All right, I didn't create a whole formula. I just put the best guys that are 35 and older.
Wonder Boy was on my honorable mentions. Honestly, like, he can still keep up with the guys in welterweight. He just doesn't have a chin anymore. And then Cannonier.
Okay, couple of my honorable mentions. Jan Blachowicz was one of them. Justin Gaethje.
Okay.
Kamaru Usman.
Onk.
I was like, he's not making this list. Bro hasn't won since he was in his 20s. Michael Chandler, Aljamain Sterling, Khalil Roundtree, Adesanya.
Wait, Khalil Roundtree
is 35.
Holy crap.
And then my last one, my baby girl, Zhang Weili.
Onk.
I wanted to like put her 1, but I was like, you know what? We'll stick to guys for today.
There was a surprising amount of. We're doing another video coming up soon where it's Brazilian fighters. There's so many good Brazilian women fighters, but I didn't put any of them on there. Respect. All right.
Alrina Aldama. Like,
hell
no.
Yeah. Amanda Lemos.
No.
What you know about Amanda Lemos? Okay, we haven't even started the list. Let's start. Number 10. This is where I got Israel Adesanya.
Okay.
Again, this is like going back to my perfect formula that I created. Izzy is one of those guys who has just turned 35. He's exactly 35 right now. I don't think he has hardly any potential left in his career.
Yeah.
He has used up all of his aura and all of his title defenses when he was, 33, 32 years old. And he hasn't won a fight since he's been 35, but he is still a very good striker. Looked good in the Dricus fight, looked okay in the first round, the Imavov fight. Just not as fast, not as good of a chin anymore, and his time's up. I feel like his time's up. So It felt bad putting him number 10 on the list, but I'm not Kenny Okoye, who still thinks Izzy's the best striker in the UFC.
Well, and I think too, like, I guess I kind of graded my list similarly to you. I kind of thought, like, is this person still able to compete at the top of their division was one of the things I thought about. So that's why with my number 10 pick, I went with Davison Figueiredo. 37.
Ooh. Yeah, I know. He's old.
An old timer.
This is who I thought you were going to forget.
Oh, no, I didn't forget Figgy. But with Figgy, he's a guy that, he still can compete with. He's in the tier 2 of bantamweight, but I think he's probably at the top of tier 2. Like, I still think he beats Sanhagen.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good fight.
That's gonna be very equal. We saw him lose pretty badly to Peter Yan. He didn't look bad, it's just that Peter Yan looked better in every single round kind of thing. He still has that power to be able to compete with the top guys. And the way that I kind of thought with him getting the 10 spot over guys like Usman and Adesanya is I still think that Figgy could get a win at the top of his division, where I don't think Adesanya and Usman could get a win at the top of their respective divisions.
So you don't have
anymore.
Adesanya on
I don't have Adesanya. It was an honorable mention.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Damn.
But I think that's fair. Adesanya
Yeah.
loses to a lot of guys at the top of middleweight.
Yeah. I just don't think, like, still in middleweight, I think the guys at the bottom are so bad. I don't think there's no way he loses to Dolidze.
Exactly.
No way he loses to Apollo Costa again.
Well, next thing you know, Bo Bickle beats him.
Yeah, that is the scary reality we're living in. Okay, number 9. This is where I got Dan Hooker.
I have Dan Hooker at 9 too.
Yeah, he's like right in the middle where he's over 35 and he's still performing at a very high level. Feels like he's on a resurgence. If we made this video 2 years ago, there's no chance he'd be, well, he wouldn't be 35.
He'd be 33. Sorry. So,
but
obviously.
You know what I mean? He was on a downturn in his career. Now it feels like he's on the up, even though he's only had one fight and Gamrot, right?
Yeah.
So we're still waiting to see if he's actually legit again. But I do believe in his skills. He has really good takedown defense, good striking, still somehow has a chin, can take a shot.
That time off saved his chin.
Yeah.
His chin was bad for a bit there, but that time off really helped him settle down.
And the tattoos.
Yeah. The aura. The aura.
So, yeah, I like Dan Hooker as a pick. He's not anywhere close to the top. There's still guys at lightweight who are much better than him and are older than 35, but he's not bad.
Well, I think one thing with Hooker is why he's lower is just he doesn't have the potential.
Yeah.
You know, he's not beating the top guys in lightweight, but he's definitely not losing to the bottom guys at lightweight. He's like kind of stuck right in his spot.
Yeah.
And I don't really see him getting much higher, but I don't see him getting much lower.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way he's going on title run.
Exactly.
In my humble opinion. Number 8, this is where I got Alexander Volkov.
This is where I have Alexander Volkov.
No way.
I thought you weren't going to talk about him.
Yeah, I respect this guy so much.
Sneaky.
Yeah, he's such a good fighter. I kind of took into account the divisions that they're in, because if we're going to be honest, like, is Chandler a better skilled fighter than Volkov? If we're talking skill for skill, I don't know. But Volkov is in heavyweight doing what?
Volkov beats the top guys of heavyweight.
Exactly.
You know, he went out and he beat Pavlovich, and then in that fight against Gon,
he beat Gon. Don't tell me anything different.
He beat Gon.
Yeah.
Beat him.
Beat Tai Tuivasa.
So those are like 2 of the top 5 heavyweights, where the guys that are honorable mentions and below him on my list, none of them could get 2 wins in the top 5 of their division.
For sure.
You know, where he has 2 back-to-back top 5 wins.
Yeah.
And I don't think he could ever become champion. He's right there in the perfect spot right there at 8.
Yeah, I feel like there's literally nothing to say. It's like Volkov is just a good fighter. I think he's 36, 37 right now. And I doubt he would ever be able to beat Tom, because Tom is just younger. He's already lost to him. Tom has such good ground game. So Volkov's right in that position where he beats all of the guys. He could be like a title gatekeeper, I think.
Yeah. Like, you beat him, you get a for sure title shot.
Yeah, 100%.
Cyril Gone.
Kill me. I hate Cyril Gone, bro.
All right, let's hear that 7. Is it going to be the same?
I doubt it. My number 7. Oh, no, it's not. This was in your honorable mentions, Gaethje.
Ooh, that's high for Gaethje.
Dude, Gaethje is still good. Like, you know, beat Rafael Fiziev pretty clearly, 2-1 decision, I think it was. Even clearer than the first fight. Is he 35 or 36?
Gaethje
must be 36.
36.
Yeah. So, I mean, I look at the bottom of lightweight, and I think he clearly beats guys like Moicano. He already beat Fiziev. I think he clearly beats Michael Chandler. Mm-hmm. Paddy's a close fight, you know? Like, I think Paddy probably gets it done, but I think Gaethje can still compete with the up-and-comers in lightweight. You know, Bahamondes, let's say, in the future. I think Gaethje wins that fight probably. So Gaethje's still really, really good. Beat Dustin Poirier by KO. He's really good, man.
Yeah, I just couldn't put Gaethje just because, you know, his last win, he's coming off that win over the number 11th ranked guy. And
yeah, it's not nothing
and if
special.
He's fighting at the top. I don't know if there's anyone ahead of him in the rankings that he beats. Yeah. And like he's probably like the 6th or 7th best lightweight right now. Yeah. So that was kind of like my argument, whereas like I don't think he could move up, whereas I think there's guys who could beat guys that are better than him.
Yeah, I was surprised by Gaethje's chin. I thought his chin was going to be gone, but it's still there. That's the only reason he's on this list.
But he's a close. He was a close. He was probably 11. So you don't have Usman on your list?
No.
Okay, good. I was waiting for a sneaky Usman. No. My number 7, a guy you just mentioned, Dustin the Diamond Poirier. I think that even though this guy's old and has been in the UFC forever, you know, he's one of those guys that's old and has been in the UFC forever. Not one of those guys who joined at 35 and is 38 now, you know?
Alex.
Yeah. But, like, he has just basically done everything inside of the UFC except win that championship. And right now...
he won an interim. You probably didn't know this. A little known fact, Dustin Poirier was interim champ.
But with his pure boxing ability, what we saw out of him that are just over a year ago, less than a year ago, around there, in that Islam Makhachev fight where he was able to compete with Islam Makhachev, really just asserts with how good he still is at this age. His boxing, he's able to keep up with basically every single fighter in his division. You throw him in there with Taporia, you throw him in there with Holloway, you throw him in there with Charles. He's able to compete in every single one of those fights and has a chance to win every single one of those fights right now. So that's why I have him above the guys below him.
That's very valid. When was that 302 fight? Was that June last year? June. So it's almost been a full year since his, since
the diamond.
Yeah, he's getting older. I'm glad that he's retiring from the sport as well. He said that he wants to retire from the sport, not let the sport retire him. I couldn't see Dustin Poirier going to Anthony Smith.
Dude,
type
just
run.
like immediately started leaking. My head started bleeding this week.
Yeah, you told me what happened.
Yeah, at work, donked my head on a cupboard, and then I started bleeding out of my head.
Felt like Anthony Smith.
I was like falling over. I was like, but I got back up. Anthony Smith didn't.
All right, my number 6 fighter. This is where I got Davison Figueiredo.
Okay, yeah.
Now, this one was tough because I don't know how much potential he has left in him, but he's also done very well. This is where my second part of the formula comes in. He's done well at 35 and above for a decent amount of time. So he's proven that he is one of the best fighters over 35. And I took into account a lower weight class. He was competing in flyweight and bantamweight, which historically you never have success.
Yeah, and he's so
35.
skilled.
Yeah, he's one of the most skilled, well-rounded fighters in those divisions. Crazy, crazy power. I just think he gets overlooked a lot of the time. This is the guy who I was talking about where I thought you didn't have him, and I have him pretty high up, I think. But I think the comments, let me know if you guys agree with that pick, if he should be way lower or if you guys think he should be higher, because I think this one could go either way. I don't think he has much potential. He's never gonna beat guys like Sean O'Malley. Corey Sandhagen's a close fight. Who knows how that goes, but he beats almost all those guys lower down than him in bantamweight.
All right, my number 6 pick, Charles do Bronx Oliveira, the 35-year-old.
You must have found way more 35-year-olds than me, because Charles at 6 is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm missing crazy amounts of people.
This video may be scrapped at this point. No. But you know what you get with Charles. Another guy similar to Poirier who is old, but is also MMA old.
Yeah.
Charles has been doing it forever, since he was looked like he was about 80 pounds.
Yeah.
Not even blonde yet.
Half an esophagus.
Yeah, tapping out to esophagus blows.
Yeah.
But Charles, I just think he's a little bit better than Poirier right now. I think that you would think that he's younger. He's one of those guys where he is 36, but if you told me he was 33, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. He's just been in the MMA, in the UFC for a long time. Yeah. Obviously you have that submission threat. That doesn't go away with age. True. He has a skill set that ages a lot better than some other guys who rely on their power and athleticism with being like the best submission artist. That doesn't go out the window with age.
You're bringing up some good points this video. I can't lie. You're cooking.
I'm cooking. Yeah. But with Charles also is like, when I put him up against the top guys in lightweight, I don't think he beats Islam. But besides Islam, I think he can compete with everyone else. You know?
I think lightweight's in a competitive division. Yeah, exactly.
They're so close.
Everyone feels the same.
Flip a coin.
100%. Okay, so I lied. Charles is my number 5.
Oh.
So I guess I just forgot. He's in a different video that we have coming up where he's higher for me. So Charles at my number 5. I mean, pretty much the same things you said. I have a hot take in this video, and you're gonna hear it with my next pick. But Charles could beat pretty much any lightweight on the planet, except Makhachev.
Yeah.
Like you said, if we go down to the lightweight division, Arman, he literally...
I had him winning that 3-round fight.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you could go either way. Justin Gaethje, he wins. Max Holloway, that's a great fight. I wish they made that fight. Dustin Poirier, who knows? Dan Hooker beats him, and then everyone else below him beats them. So it's like, you really only have Makhachev, who I think is a clear win, and then 3 other guys who is like 50-50 coin toss.
And then Taporia too in there.
Yeah, and at 35 or above 35, I think he still actually has a bit of potential. Like you said, I don't see him being a Dustin Poirier where he's retiring in the next year. He could probably fight for 3 years and be decent. Yeah. It just depends on what he wants his legacy to be.
And he also just hasn't taken the damage that these other fighters have taken. You know? When you're dominating the fight on the ground.
Yeah, but I mean, he does get rocked like every fight, It just feels like his chin recovers really fast. So, Yeah, Charles is my pick for number 5.
All right, my number 5. This is where I have Alex Pereira. The fall from grace for this guy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I just think that in his last fight, we saw Alex Pereira.
Old.
He's old. He's slowing down. He looked so slow. And even if you look to the fight before that with versus Roundtree, he lost 2 rounds in that fight. You know, he wasn't this dominant from round 1, full control like he was in his previous 3 fights before that. He lost 2 rounds, ended up having the better gas tank, slowly beat down on Roundtree and won that fight. But with Ankalaev, looked like he had no game plan, never got anything going, and was just looking for big shots, which I think is one of my biggest gripes with UFC fighters, is when they're in a fight against someone who's very high level and you're just looking for one big shot. That doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like, imagine if Topuria didn't throw anything except an overhand.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't work.
It's what we saw with Josh Emmett versus Lerone Murphy. We saw it with Protez versus Gary in those first 3 rounds, just looking to connect on one.
Yeah.
You know, you're basically rolling the dice with that, you know?
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work, and then just continue to go to the calf kick late. You know, you already just destroyed this guy's
bro, don't get me
You destroyed this guy's leg, you know? And I just think with Pereira is like, how much does he actually have left? You know, he doesn't have maybe even 2 full years.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely not 2 full years.
He has maybe 3 fights.
Yeah.
So
at max, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Depends on how his Ank fight goes. I don't know. Okay, my number 4. This is my hot take for the video. I have Dustin Poirier above Charles Oliveira.
Okay.
Honestly, what Dustin showed in that Islam Makhachev fight impressed me pretty much. I'm so high on Dustin Poirier, even though he's retiring. Like, he did more in that fight than I could have ever expected. He did better than Charles Oliveira. I think if Dustin Poirier fought Charles Oliveira, I'd lean Dustin at this point. I don't know why. That's just the vibes. When I was making this list, that's the vibes I was getting. On a different day, I'd probably pick different. But
I mean, I have them 1 spot separate, so you know, like,
yeah,
it's a close fight, 100%.
Yeah, it just depends on if Charles gets knocked down. Like, who knows, dude? Who knows? And then if Dustin gets submitted, like, could go either way. I think Dustin has, again, some of the best boxing still in the UFC at 35, 36 years old, however old he is. Is he 36?
He's 36.
Yeah. I think if you put him against Topuria, that is a very, very, very hard matchup for Topuria. I've always said this. Arman Sarukian, I mean, we saw his takedown defense against Makhachev, how he can reverse those positions, how he can turn up against the fence. Like, that is insanely impressive for only having half of a hip.
Yeah.
I love Dustin Poirier. I think he's still great. Glad he's going out when he's still top 5.
I know for a fact you forgot someone.
Okay.
I don't know which one. All I know is that you just named your number 4.
Yeah.
And there is 4 champions in the UFC who are 35 and older.
No. I know who I forgot now.
All right, my number 4.
Someone's getting cut from this list.
My number 4 is Bilal Muhammad.
He's 35?
He's 36.
Oh my goodness.
He did not remember the name.
Dude.
He did not remember the name.
How was I supposed to remember that?
But with Bilal, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
The what's the word?
Smuggle?
What's snuffle?
Smothering?
Snuffle. The smothering what? I was in Westwood. With Bilal, you know what you're getting. You got that smothering wrestling. Oh, he's doing a fact. No.
Yeah.
When I looked yesterday, it said 35.
Wait, what? We're fat. I was just double checking someone's age really quick. And on UFC website, it says 34. Dylan thinks it's different. Because this is where I did my research. I use
this. I was originally looking him up, and I was like, this takes way too long. I can just click on their head.
Yeah.
April 16th. He just turned it.
UFC needs to update. Fix your site, UFC. Fix your site. Dang. So he's going to lose his next fight. That's crazy.
But back to Bilal, always getting put on the back burner. He's got a card upcoming.
I missed 2 people then.
And no one even talks about the 315 main event. All they can talk about is 317, 318.
Yeah. I forgot he was fighting.
Yeah. But with Bilal, the hands of Canelo with the smothering wrestling.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting. And I don't know. It's a toss-up in that fight versus JDM. I think I lean Bilal slightly. Mm-hmm. And then from there, where do we go? If it's a 50-50 with most of these fights. That's what welterweight is. It's a coin toss in basically all these fights.
Well, and you look at the history of since we've been watching, it's like these guys who have the smothering wrestling against guys who are good boxers, we usually know how that goes.
Exactly. So
we just need to accept it.
That's why Bilal at 36 years old, 36. Dude. I can understand why you forgot him.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think he's old because it was between him and Marab. I was like, one of these guys is old.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. My number 3. This is where I have Pereira.
Okay.
Yeah. I know he did look old in his last fights. It's just like, again, I'm gonna go back to my famous age formula. He has done his entire UFC career pretty much above the age of 35.
Yeah.
So I have to put an insane amount of respect, because if you're talking about athletes who are performing above the age of 35, he was top of that list 4 months ago, before the Ank fight, pretty much. And even in the Ank fight, he went to a close decision. Ank won pretty clearly, but you could have scored it 3 rounds to 2 rounds for Ank. So, if you talk Ank's in his prime, Alex Pereira taking 2 rounds off of him, that's still not bad. That's not a bad performance, but we're just used to seeing this dominant force in the octagon, and we just didn't see that. So I think it soured a lot of people, but, who knows? Ank could go down as the light heavyweight GOAT, and then we're all saying, oh, no one was able to take
light heavyweight GOAT better than Jones.
Yeah, hey, he's been talking on Twitter. He's been talking big game on Twitter. Big Ank been talking big game on Twitter. I think Pereira's still good, but I don't know if he has any potential left. We may have already seen his last win.
Yeah, that's a very valid take. All right, my number 3. So I have Volk. Hit 3 and 2 are basically interchangeable for me. I think that both guys they're both 2 of the best fighters of all time. It's just who I think could beat a better opponent. And I just think that with Volk right now, if you went and put him up against Topuria or Holloway, it's close.
Yeah.
What I saw out of Volk it wasn't vintage Volk. It wasn't the guy who was going out in 50-45ing Max Holloway. Mm-hmm. It looked like the guy who got knocked out by Ilia Topuria, but it's still good.
Yeah.
And who knows how much of it was we're discrediting Lopez in that fight, or it's a win that could either age poorly or very great. But with Volk, one of the most skilled fighters, one of the most well-rounded fighters inside of the UFC. But I'm thinking, what does he have left for title defenses? Like, I do think he beats Movsar, but the second Gene Silva's up there, it's over.
Yeah.
The reign's over. You know?
If there was any other power puncher in the division that was high up, like, it would be over. There's no way he could take I guess Diego Lopez is kind of a power puncher, but
he knocked him down.
He did knock him down. Yeah, I thought he was going to get finished.
But low fight IQ.
100%.
And what I saw with Protes being unable to finish a fight.
Brazilians maybe just have low fight IQ.
Maybe Pereira. Do Bronx.
Yeah. Damn. Okay, yeah. At my number 3 spot,
number 2.
I already said number 3. So at my number 2 spot, that's where I got John Jones.
Okay.
Yeah. He's 37, old as dirt. I don't think he beats Tom Aspinall.
Oh, you have Jones at 2?
Yeah.
I also have Jones at 2.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
You just woke up or something?
Yeah. Well, I was just forgetting how you forgot so many awesome fighters on your list.
2 fighters who are very forgettable. But yeah, I'll make a formal apology.
Okay, Dana White.
When Pantoja sees this video. No, John Jones, I think he loses to Tom Aspinall, so he's not the best heavyweight right now. But dude, heavyweight's so bad, he beats every other heavyweight. Mm-hmm. He's already beaten Sirgan, he beats Volkov, if Pavlovich gets a lucky punch, you never know, but Pavlovich ain't that guy anymore.
He's a decision merchant.
Exactly. Curtis Blades. Like, the heavyweight is so bad, and John Jones is just so skilled. Even when he's on the decline, he still is way more skilled than any other heavyweight except Tom. And that's that. I think that's going to be probably a pick'em fight when that happens. Mm-hmm. I think John Jones might even be the favorite. Oh. Just because of all the casuals.
Yeah. Well, I think when you have with my argument with Jones is that I almost kind of like him more in that fight, just because what have we seen out of Tom Aspinall? 2 minutes of fighting every time versus the greatest UFC fighter of all time.
Yeah.
You know, like
with a good chin.
Like, what happens if that fight goes past the first round? What happens when we get into the second round? Like, is Tom just going to be huffing and puffing for his life out there on the chair with the inhaler going? And Jones is just like, where's my wife? You know?
I hope he's not like that.
I don't know. I just still think that Jones could beat Tom Aspinall. Like, I'm going into that fight close. Very 50-50.
Yeah.
And that's why he's number 2 on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just a good fighter, bro.
Yeah, he's the greatest of all time.
Crazy take. John Jones is a good fighter.
The greatest of all time,
but
you know?
But not a good person. Probably like one of my least favorite fighters of all time. I was gonna go on a rant, but I just don't have the energy. I'm so annoyed at this whole Tom Aspinall situation still. Like, Tom Aspinall is just getting his career wasted at this point.
Yeah.
He's gonna be 34 before we know it. And he could still become the heavyweight
Well,
goat.
he's having interim title defenses, which do nothing for your career.
Exactly. It's
like that's not recognized as a stat.
It's so dumb. I hope the UFC just recognizes it, but yeah, it sucks. All right, number 1.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this is where I didn't forget this guy. It's Volk.
Yeah.
But I did forget Pantoja and Bilal, who would have been top 5 on my list. Pantoja probably 2, honestly. But yeah, Volk, I mean, I've said before, he's skill for skill. Other than Makhachev, the best fighter, I would say. Great wrestling, great striking, great boxing, great defense. Used to have a great chin, but that's kind of thing that's holding him back right now. I think the Lopez win will age pretty good. I think Lopez is going to stay in that top 5 for a couple years probably. It's going to be tough for him to make a title charge because of Movsar and, you know, Gene Silva. It's just going to be a tough division. But I don't think it's a bad win. You know, it adds to Volk's legacy 100%. And, you know, if we talk about how much potential Volk has in this division, maximum, I would say 1 title defense. Maybe 2, but Movsar, close fight. I think Volk can win that fight though. I don't think there's as much risk as a KO compared to Diego Lopez, and we saw him eat punches from Lopez, which knocked Brian Ortega down. So yeah. I was impressed. I was, you know, in the moment, I was like, oh man, he's getting rocked by jabs, which he was. But then I remember, okay, Lopez has been flatlining guys like Ortega. Ortega has a good chin, so I got to put some respect on Volk still, especially to break that age curse. Literally, why'd I say it like that? Literally the first person over 35 years old to win a belt in the lower weight classes.
Yeah.
Unheard of. He's
Unk of Unks.
Unk of Unk, bro. Like, crazy.
Yeah.
I love him.
All right, and wrapping up the list, number 1 is Pantoja. A guy, in my opinion, who's a top 3 pound-for-pound fighter in the entire world, one of the most underrated fighters in the whole entire world, has cleared out the entire flyweight division. You know, and I just don't see anyone in that division who beats him. If he goes up and fights Merab, obviously has a chance in that fight because of how skilled he is. Merab is also probably my 4th pound-for-pound fighter, so it's like a super tough fight.
What about Topuria? Or you're not counting Jones in the top 2?
Jones ain't in the top 2.
Right. Yeah. I should have, yeah.
He ain't in the top 2. But yeah, with Pantoja, you know what you're getting. Who knows what'll happen now that he has just turned 35, you know, as of April 16th. Turned 35.
Yeah, okay, so that one's not actually my fault.
Yeah, because the UFC website said 34.
Yeah.
Good thing I looked at other sources before. But yeah, it's Pantoja. You know what you're getting.
I was busy watching Revenge of the Sith coming back into theaters, so
yeah.
Respect.
But all right, that's gonna wrap it up for today. Make sure you guys go into the comments. Let us know who's the best fighter at the age of 35 or older. Is it Pantoja? Is it Jones? Is it Volk? Is it someone else? While you guys are down there, make sure you're liking, commenting, and subscribing. Appreciate all the love and support. I will see you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.